A delivery driver left a plain, heavy box on my doorstep with my sister's name on the label, a name nobody had spoken aloud in 5 years. When I opened it, everything I thought I knew about that night fell apart. We had buried her once in our mouths, as if silence could stitch a wound closed. The house learned to swallow echoes at family gatherings. Her seat remained empty, and everyone pretended the missing plate had been left in the dishwasher. Her room became a museum of the life we refused to pronounce. We learned new ways to live with the absence. A thermostat set lower because one fewer body took up heat, a sweater folded and set on a chair that never felt cold nor warm, pictures turned that faced the wall. Saying her name felt like opening a door and expecting the air to answer. So when I saw it printed on a label, precise, black ink, the surname I refused to type now, my throat tightened like a door catching on a splinter. I almost left it there. Packages arrive wrong all the time. Our street was a corridor of boxes and missed deliveries. But the box didn't sit like a courier's afterthought. It was deliberate, dense, wrapped in brown tape until edges softened. The weight pulled the cardboard flat in a way that suggested something compact and stubborn inside. The label was smudged where rain had kissed it, the adhesive leaving a faint gloss that made the name look like it had been rewritten and pressed down again, like someone had tested whether the word would stay inside the front hall. My hands didn't belong to me. They moved with a memory older than fear, lifting the box, setting it on the kitchen counter where the light fell in a single clean rectangle. The delivery driver had gone already, only the quiet remained, along with the smell of wet pavement and the metallic hint of something else, old paper maybe, and a perfume I couldn't place. My stomach lowered like a stone into a well. The house around me seemed to lean, and there were no return addresses, no logos, no note saying do not open or to be returned, just the name, as if that were instruction enough. I took a utility knife from a drawer and cut through the tape with a precision that surprised me. The flap opened like the lid of a coffin. The air that rose carried a chill and the faintest scent of cedar. Inside, resting on a nest of newspaper, was a small wooden box, darkened with age, the kind you'd find in an antique shop and think had always been waiting for you. On the lid, somebody had burned a single letter into the wood, the initial she had always hated, because our mother used it like a promise she could never make good. My first thought was that whoever had put this here wanted me to find it. My second thought was darker. Maybe they wanted me to relive everything. I turned the wooden lid with trembling fingers. The top layer was photographs. Not glossy prints, but Polaroids, the kind with margins heavy enough to write on. The first one I pulled free made my knees go soft. It was her. She was sitting in the backseat of a car, head bowed, hair damp at the temples as if she'd been out in rain, wearing a jacket I remembered exactly because she always wore it when we argued and stormed out. Zipper caught on the inner pocket, the little silver ring smudged. Her eyes in the Polaroid were open, and for a beat my brain refused to understand that they were not staring off into distance but toward the camera with a look that was equal parts apology and warning. There was a tiny white sticker on the lower border of the Polaroid, the kind cameras used to print dates. The numbers were clear. The date was 2 days after the night the police had written off as when she vanished. 2 days. My mouth tasted of metal. I flipped the picture over. Across the blank space, in a handwriting I would recognize in the dark, scrawled a single sentence. Don't trust the road. The letters were hurried, as if whoever wrote them had to stop at a red light in the middle of a sentence. The apostrophe in don't leaned like a broken tooth. There were more photos beneath. In one she was standing on a dimly lit porch, the porch of our childhood house, with the chipped white railing and the plant stand Dad used to lean on when he wanted to say nothing at all. In another she held a paper cup, her thumb leaving a damp ring at the rim, and there on the sleeve was a tiny smear of ink I remembered because Wed laughed over her tendency to smudge things. In every frame she was alive, alive in the way recorders betray when they mistake a heartbeat for normalcy. A bent shoulder, a tightening at the corner of the mouth, a small tremor in the hand buried under the photos was a key. Not ornate, not new, a key with a brass head the size of a thumbnail and a series of grooves so familiar they felt like a name. I turned it over again and again as if repetition could make sense of the way its teeth glinted. It belonged to something that had been locked and had been opened. It belonged to an inside. My pulse pounded in my ears. The logical part of me knew the police needed to see this, that evidence could be evidence even after 5 years. The other part, the part that kept her name folded in a handkerchief on a top shelf, told me to sit down, to breathe, to think. I should have called someone then. But the kitchen light buzzed in that shallow way it does when a storm is coming, and the house felt crowded with absent people. Instead, I thumbed through the photos and found beneath the last Polaroid a strip of paper with an address typed on it. Not our address, not any place I recognized. My fingers brushed the ink and came away slightly damp, as if the words had been my companion in a dream and were dissolving now that I was awake. Outside, a car rolled by, tires whispering on wet asphalt. The near silence was suddenly loud, like a held breath. For 5 years we had accepted a tidy narrative. She had walked away, been lost to bad luck and worse choices, been swallowed by the indifferent city. The Polaroids refused that neatness. They suggested a route, a sequence, a person who had been here after the knives were put away. They suggested someone had been keeping something secret in the open. I stacked the photographs back into the little wooden box, closed the lid, and sat with it on my lap the way you hold a sleeping child. Night outside was a velvet thing, heavy with the promise of rain. The label on the package, the black ink of her name, seemed suddenly like an accusation. Whoever had sent it knew where silence was weakest, and they had chosen my doorstep as the place to pry it open. I told myself, with the same small kindness I offered when explaining away a sudden memory, that there could be a dozen explanations. A hoax, a cruel joke, a private investigator with a flair for drama. But the handwriting on the back of that Polaroid belonged to someone who had folded my sister's letters into neat squares and kept them under their mattress. The key matched a lock I had forgotten I had ever used. The date was a clock I had stopped. For the first time in 5 years, the night she disappeared stopped being a single event and became a thread, and the photographs were a hand pulling at it. I dialed the number I had for Detective Rios with fingers that did not feel like mine. The line rang once, twice. On the third ring it clicked as if someone had picked a rusted bolt. I was ready to tell him everything, to hand him the box and let him do the work of turning our small private grief into evidence. Then the man on the other end said, "You're home? It's late." His voice was the one thing constant in the years since the case went cold, and in it I heard a caution I couldn't name. I placed the box back on the counter and opened the drawer where I kept matches. The flame grazed the wood and the room filled with the clean, sharp smell of burn. The match flare made the shadows in the corners lean forward like listening things. I realized I had left the front door unlocked.